Hello YouTube, Alan back with a very delayed video from my last one. I think it probably has been 12 months, maybe even 18 months. But we're all locked in at the moment, so I figure, well, let's make a video. In fact, I might make a couple of videos. I don't have that much in particular that I want to do in terms of format, but I'll stick with tried and true, so we'll do some package and pickups. And that's why this fella is sitting with me. No, package and pickups video, quarantine edition. I was going to say lockdown edition, but that sounds very much like in prison. And I got a visitor who's coming in. He's got his own. He's got a toy. One of the dogs has just walked in with a toy in his mouth. As if said, I'll show off mine. A very dirty, squeaky pig. So I think he wants to trade me because this is Snorlax. He's a Build-A-Bear dude. Oh, where'd he go? Yeah, there we go. And he's got a speaker inside him, and of course, every time the dog hears him, he's like, oh, "I would play with that." But no, this is the one stuffed toy he can't play with. So yes, this was a Christmas present for my wife, and he has his own little bird cert and everything. Ain't he cute? I don't know if they still do have the Nintendo license, the Pokemon license, because at the time as well you got a little Pokemon card with it. I remember I guess these are exclusive because they have Build-A-Bear Workshop on the card. Initially, I just assumed it was the Snorlax, Pokemon trading card, because I remember when Pokemon first came out, the trading cards were bloody huge. So I don't know anything about them beyond that these days. People seem to still buy them, but are they worth anything or not? I don't know. This is just the good old Snorlax. Very young Snorlax, I guess. And I had to pick Snorlax because he's my favorite Pokemon. Always has been. And this one in particular is called Silent Bob, named after the first Pokemon the first Snorlax that I had in the original Pokemon Red. And I called him Silent Bob because that was, I think, the name of one of the Pokemon in N64 magazine when they were doing a review of Pokemon Red. So there we go, my little story of Snorlax. So what else did we get in the last 12 months? Not a lot of action video game stuff, to be fair. Most of a few bits of Christmas. It was Retro Gamer magazine 200 issue. I have a whole bunch of Retro Gamer magazines, and I actually stopped getting them regularly because simply, one, there's an element of you're repeating the same type of content. You're doing history profiles on the NES, history profiles on the Mega Drive. Yeah, you talk to some developers, new stuff does come out, and it generally is very well put together, and it's a good magazine, and it's great that there is, a print outlet for retro gaming. But frankly, I had such a build-up of content that I hadn't read. It's kind of like, geez, there's not really a point on me just continuing to buy loads of them. But with a special, I was glad to get this again. It's another Christmas present. Let me see. And plus I had a few extras things thrown in. So what has it got? It's got a 14-track Turrican CD and a poster. So you can see the kind of the poster at the front, this kind of pixel art thing. I'm sure lots of people have done a full pull out of that. So I'm not going to open it up until I need to keep the dust and whatnot away. So there are a few of the Christmas items. There was another one, kind of a stocking stuffer. And it is some Space Invaders playing cards. So on the whole, they're actually regular playing cards in a video game, tin. So we got the Space Invaders, our classic arcade kind of setup. And probably, I'm not sure if you can see, it's got like the buttons as they would have been kind of on the original arcade machine. And then you have a pack of cards. Again, I'm going to keep these closed until I have a need to use them, since they are actually quite nice. And the designs, or they have on the back of the box, the designs are basically of each suite are the different aliens, which is pretty cool. It's amazing how timeless those alien designs have proven to be. I suppose they are based on kind of War of the Worlds style stuff, so there's prior inspiration. But they're the kind of few extra little kind of paraphernalia bits. Oh no, there's a couple more. Put this away first. Make some space. I guess tangentially related paraphernalia bits. We have some Star Wars stuff. Some little mini Millennium Falcon and TIE Fighter. What's kind of cool about these is well, I'm leaving them in the box, but if you were to play with them, they actually come with these little finger mounts, so you can kind of swoosh the vehicle about the place. And of course, that term is really a great way to describe it, because certainly in Lego, when you're talking about vehicles and planes and Star Wars, vehicles as well, they will talk about the swooshability, how much when you can pick up something and swoosh it about without it breaking. If it can actually stay together and kids can play with it, it's got good swooshability. I'd imagine these have good swooshability, but they're the classic, so they're nice little kind of nerd items, I guess. And now I need some space. Okay, you can stay there. Next up is another piece of paraphernalia. So I don't know why I said earlier on that I was on the last piece. This one I've actually shown on Twitter, so some people might have already seen it. I've seen these in Aldi, of all places. They had these classic console backpack buddies. Well, basically, they're key rings. And I don't know if it comes up on the back, but you have Game Boy, NES, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, N64 controller, SNES controller, GameCube controller, and DS or 3DS. Sorry, or maybe that's DS. I can't really. No, it's 3DS because it's got the circle pad. And apparently, of course, with these type of things, there's a chase one. Collect all 8, and there's look for the chase controller. There always has to be these type of things. I didn't. I just wanted one. I was kind of hoping I'd get the N64 one because I thought that looked the nicest. But to be fair, they're all nice in their own way. And so I got the Game Boy Classic. A nice little touch is that the buttons and the D-pad are actually pressable. So it kind of simulates it being a real button. But just for a little kind of a novelty item, I thought they were quite cute. Not that I have a backpack to put them on, but hey ho, they can. Someday I'll get my stuff reorganized and it'll have a place to stay. So now we're finished with the kind of paraphernalia stuff, and we can talk about the games. So I think since the last update, I got 5 games. These 4 PlayStation 4 games and a Switch game. And I'll talk about the Switch game first because it's digital and therefore I don't have anything to show. And that is Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. I think that's the name of the title. It's the pseudo kind of sequel. Pretty much really is a sequel to Wonder Boy. So you can call it Wonder Boy 5 if you want to add to that series naming convention problems. And it was a really great game. I played it from start to finish, 100% of it. Although it took me a couple of goals because I kept getting like 99.9%. I'd missed a couple of little places on the map and stuff. It's very much a Metroidvania game. Follows on from Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Track. Sorry, mister, you're in the way there. We go. That's better. It follows on from Wonder Boy 3, where you have the different animal kind of transformations, give you different abilities, and you have to you open up different parts of the world and whatnot. But it kind of adds to it. There's a few more forms, a few more abilities. It definitely has a more interlinked world with more kind of exploration, and it's a lot longer than say Wonder Boy 3 or 4, way longer. But it really was well put together, and the team certainly, you could tell they put a lot of passion into it. There's great animation, great artwork, and music was really good because there was some new stuff, but there was also a lot of reworked kind of classic music as well. So for anyone who's a fan of Wonder Boy, or to be fair, if you're a fan of Metroidvania games in general, it's well worth checking out. And it's over a year old now, so to be honest, you'll probably, if you look around, you might get it on a sale because it's £40, €40, around that price, which for a download only well, it's not download only, it's more limited run game release, but it's pretty much you're going to get a download now. That might seem a lot for an indie game, but to be fair, there's a lot of AAA games that have a lot less, attention and care put into it. There's a good solid adventure. It pretty much is worth it, at that price. But at the same stage, you'll probably will find it at half price on sales. So I got it at half price myself, and at that price, it was definitely an absolute bargain. Highly recommended. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff you can't hold up. That's the thing about these digital download games. You can't hold them up for packaging pickups videos. It's terrible. So we'll do some PlayStation ones. And you've probably seen some of them, the way the games are sitting there, but it's not too much of a secret answer. Not great surprise. It's just PlayStation 4 games. First up, though, is Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, you've probably seen me pick up Assassin's Creed stuff in the past. I'm a big fan of the series. A few entries I haven't kind of bothered with, but by and large, I've played the majority of them. And I haven't got into the Uplay points and all that kind of crap, and that seemed to be coming in this, but you could pretty much ignore it. I've 100%ed this. Exclude, I didn't do really the DLC or anything, but it was very enjoyable. It took me a little bit to kind of get into the story. It's not the best story, and the landscape and environment isn't as engaging as I thought it might be. Ultimately, I suppose, and I probably should have expected this, it's Egypt, it's the desert. There's a lot of just going through barren deserts. There are plenty of interesting places and towns and whatnot, but it's it's not as kind of, oh yeah, that'd be interesting, exploring all the tombs and all that. Like, that part actually wasn't that interesting. When you climb one pyramid, they're all the same pretty much after that. Well, some of them are steps, some of them are bent, whatever, but they're all, you get the gist. In terms of Assassin's Creed general gameplay, it's very similar to the past. Um, I enjoyed a lot of the combat aspects. They definitely have added a few tweaks there that were nice. My favorite thing to do was actually, when you're sneaking into a place, use poison to infect one of the guards, and then he'd go around spreading poison to all the other guards and whatnot, and you're just sitting there kind of laughing away in the corner as they're all kind of falling over dying, and they're looking at each other going, oh, what's happening? And they'd look at the body, get sick and go on. And now I'm thinking, oh, that's very coronavirus, just kind of watching it spread. Moving quickly on from that, we will have a God of War game. Now, this is actually probably next up on my list of things to play. I loved the God of War 1, 2, and 3. Ascension wasn't too bad either, and the PlayStation Portable games were good. But the series, I suppose, had gotten a little stale. And certainly that's what they felt when they did a complete revision of the series for this one. So I think this is all Norse gods, Kratos as a kid, open world more style. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. It got rave reviews, so I'm hoping when I'll be able to get into it. But I actually like the fact that the God of War, that series of games, were just A to B linear, action hack and slash type of games. There's not that many of those type of games left on the market, so I appreciated just that type of experience. I didn't need God of War to be an open-ended massive adventure. I was just happy with a 8-hour A to B, just get it done. That's that, and hack and slash and kill some demons. That's all I needed. So we'll see how this goes. As I said, it's probably next up on my things to play. And where did these other ones go? Sit down. Okay, so this one I have played a little bit. SpiderMan. Again, very well reviewed, and it looked interesting from the trailers. I played a little bit of it. It seems like it could be a decent open world game. Again, more open world games. But I was actually struggling with all of the combos that they were throwing at me right from the get-go. You can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this, and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. There's just that many combos and that much complexity to the combat straight away that it was actually, for someone that essentially doesn't play as many modern games anymore, quite a bit of a hurdle to get into, and I'm sure if I spent a bit more time, I would get into it and I would learn the combinations and all that sort of stuff. But, when you're dipping into a game, maybe at the weekend or a little bit during the week or whatever it might be, it didn't come naturally. So I kind of put it on the back burner, but I do plan to go back to it. So judgment is reserved on that one. I think I meant to actually take over another PlayStation 4 game now that I'm thinking it. I can't recall if in the last video I spoke about Doom 2016, which is kind of topical, I suppose, in given that Doom Eternal is out. If I did not, and I have a funny feeling I did, so I won't spend too long talking about it. That was a great game too, completed it, and unlike Doom 3, I felt it really captured the spirit and essence of the kind of classic Doom games, this kind of high intensity single player just adventure. And again, need more of those in the game industry today. So as I said, I think I talked about it before, so I'm going to move on. And this is the final one then we'll talk about, and that is Resident Evil 2 Remake, or I guess, or E2, or I don't know, comes like or an E or in red. And it's a complete kind of ground up remake of Resident Evil 2 from the PlayStation 1 days. I was never able to get into kind of Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and 0, those ones with the tank controls. I just can't wrap my head around tank controls. I find them so clunky and so unintuitive, and I like the concept of the games. Certainly, what they did with the tech at the time was very impressive, and I can totally see why everyone was talking about Resident Evil and oh, it's a great game and whatnot. But I just couldn't get into it because of those controls. So when Resident Evil 4 came around, that was the first time I was like, oh yeah, I really, really liked Resident Evil 4. I liked it so much, I bought it on the GameCube, then I bought it on the Wii. I could finally finish it on the Wii. I couldn't finish the GameCube version. So I kind of drifted away from the series though because Resident Evil 5 wasn't as good. Resident Evil 5 was so disappointing to me that I didn't even play Resident Evil 6 and 7. I have Resident Evil 6, but I just never got around to starting it because, again, the reviews were very middling for it. It seemed to be just too much action bombast and not enough kind of substance. So I wasn't sure about how this remake, but it sounded pretty good because they were actually going to give him more modern day controls instead of the tank controls. And as I said, I always want to try it, and I do have the Resident Evil games, but I just can't get into them. So finally, this was my chance really to play kind of Resident Evil 2 properly, and I'm glad I did because it was definitely an enjoyable experience. More people probably know, but you play as either Leon or Claire. You got two similar type of stories. Not that much changes. You got a few different rooms, a few different set pieces, but it's similar experience. I've played through as both, and I've played through as Leon's second one, where again there's a few more tweaks. One major difference, other than the controls and the graphics and all that sort of stuff, is Mr. X, or the Tyrant or whatever he's called, he chases you around a lot more than he did in the original. And the first time that happened, it was kind of real, Jesus, kind of, I'm not sure about this because frankly, I didn't want to spend the rest of the game chased by this dude. The chasing mechanic is a bit clumsy. He can't be killed, so you can stumble him to get, you can shoot him in the head to kind of get him to stumble to get around him and run off. And basically, you just kind of listen to the footsteps and just try and hide. And the game just boils down to when he's around, hiding into one of the safe rooms, just waiting for the sounds to go in, and off you go. So I was glad that you're actually able to avoid a lot of that, because if the next 6 hours of game are going to be like that, it's going to get very tedious. It didn't, thankfully. So as I said, it was an enjoyable experience, and I was glad that they remade it with modern controls. I've never played Ori 3, so I'm not too sure how this Ori 3 remake will go. We'll keep an eye on it. Anyway, I've been rambling enough about all these games. That's definitely enough to get back into. The other thing, of course, that before I finish up, is the reason why there hasn't been that many pickups is, well, I've obviously a lot of games. And I mentioned in one of my last videos a year ago, we'll say, doing things like retro achievements. So I spent a lot of time doing retro achievements, and out of these games behind me, I've actually played now hundreds of them. And when you end up collecting and you start to build up, a high volume of games, and like, say for example, Assassin's Creed Origins, that one I probably spent about 70 hours on. Assassin's Monster Boy, whatever, that was probably 20 hours. Resident Evil was probably 20 hours. So these things, they add up on there, especially the modern ones. But some of the classic ones can add up too, because they can be challenging, or they could be RPGs or whatever. So you start to question yourself, are you ever going to play these? Are you ever going to, even try some of them? And that was what I enjoyed about retro achievements, that it did kind of give me an excuse, kind of the impetus to go back to some games I've already played, but also to try some of these ones. And it ultimately is kind of coincided with a change in mindset, where I'm not trying to actually just collect everything I see. And it's very, very rare I'll pick up something. And basically every game that I've either asked or picked up for it myself have been played, and to some degree or other. There's very, very few now that aren't. And I think that's a much better place to get. The game should be, it's great to have them in the collection, but they really need to be played too. So anyway, that's just kind of, the reason why I was bringing it up was, of course, it's obviously sad the way that the world is going right now with things like this coronavirus and being locked down in a lot of places. Certainly in Ireland, that's what we're undergoing, and I know a lot of people that will be viewing this video would probably be in a similar situation. I know a lot of people who've watched my videos also do have game collections, and we talk about having this collection for rainy days. Well, it might not be actually raining outside, but in some ways it is. It's a perfect opportunity to stay inside and play some of these things instead of just have them sit on the shelf. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. At least I hope it distracted you for a few minutes of the day. I probably will do a few more videos over this particular time frame. I don't know if I'll end up doing videos in the long run. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But for now, we'll say I'll see you again soon.